Hi, Simon. So lovely to see you. How are you today?
Very good, thank you. Yes, looking forward to the weekend when we're all able to go out a little bit more and socialise and do a few things. And I'm a new
Absolutely.
father as of this week, so life is good, and looking forward optimistically after 3.5 months of lockdown.
Absolutely. Congratulations on Joey. I know he's only 2 days old, but you look very well rested. So you're doing something right.
Well, listen, I mean, I think we've all had a chance to catch up on a lot of sleep over the last number of weeks. So even a couple of nights of a bit variable sleep hasn't offset the fact that I've been sleeping longer than usual.
Fair enough. Simon, you wear so many different hats, and I'm going to try and touch on the conversation on all of those. And the first one is that you're one of the co-founders of the Sporting Wine Club, and many of us don't know what that is. So could you tell us what it is and why you founded it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we came across the idea just through a relationship I had with a Springbok Rugby international, Schalk Burger. Brought his wines over here because I loved them so much, and marketed it through another wine company that then went bust. So I felt very responsible. And out of that came the idea of how do we, well, first get Schalk's wines sold, and secondly, make something a bit more of it. So we formed a company which, where the characteristics are that to supply the club as a winemaker, you have to have an authentic connection to sport. And so we've been around the world, and most rugby playing nations make wine. So there's 7 or 8 rugby winemakers, international referees, club owners, ex-players, Leo Messi from the football world, Louis Oosthuizen and Nick Faldo from the golf world. You get the idea. So 13 or 14 winemakers from around the world. And it's a members club. So we have a private membership that enjoys the wines and events and meeting sporting personalities. We do a huge amount for charity because all the winemakers obviously are sports people, therefore they're connected to sporting charities or other charities. And the other thing is that various stadia and sporting clubs, whether amateur or professional, enjoy the narrative and the fellowship and the friendship it brings. They love rubbing shoulders with sporting people. So it's kind of taken off like that. And, we've survived the lockdown. All the members have been incredibly supportive and loyal. All of the other outlets have been shut down to us, obviously, but hopefully there'll be some sort of light at the end of this tunnel. And it's been hard work, but look, we're all in it together. And I just want to thank everyone involved with the club who's supported us through this time.
Absolutely. And you say, well, we've all experienced a bit of a tough time. How do you see the market at the moment, and what are the challenges that you're experiencing?
Well, I think, first of all, we've all been sitting at home, so people have been drinking just a little bit more and have been happy to order it online. Of course, some of it's replacement because you would be going out to wine bars or dinners and this sort of thing. We haven't done too many virtual wine tastings because that we're not really set up for that, but we're starting to get inquiries, so we might do some of it. So I think, we've certainly enjoyed a lot more interaction with the members, and I'm sure that will continue. As far as the wider market is concerned, I suppose there must be a bit of a wine lake out there because, all the various institutions, restaurants and hotels and clubs, have been sitting there for the last few months not doing anything. But in general, I think the conversations I've had is that people are just so keen to get back, and, we all are built to socialize and be together. So I just hope that within reason and with all the good sense that we'll have as individuals, get back to not a norm, but mixing in social communities as soon as possible, because I think we need it.
Oh, absolutely. I know we don't tell Scotland, but we are opening up this weekend, and everyone is very excited about that. I know some countries had the absolute misfortune of being locked down without access to any alcohol. That was all illegal. But I think a lot of good wine helped us all get through this, most definitely.
Yeah, I mean, the winemakers who I've been talking to a lot in South Africa, where there's not Schalk Burger, but Simon and Holly Turner at Summeridge and Louis Oosthuizen, his wine farm. They've not been able to sell their wine domestically, and they couldn't export it either until recently. So it really has been a case of us all trying to work out ways that when the lockdown kind of comes to an end, that we can really build back as soon as we can, because in South Africa, the harvest has only just finished and they haven't even been able to bottle their wine. So I think we really got to help each other through all of this.
Absolutely. And you mentioned some incredible sporting legends. Obviously, being a Springbok myself, the Burgers are very close to my heart. But you've got, like you say, Botham and Messi and a variety of others. What do you think the link is between these fantastic sporting legends and wine or vineyards, other than drinking great wine?
Yeah, look, one of the things that we're very clear about is that it's not just a label. You know, the people who are involved in wine, and you mentioned some great names. Jimmy Anderson, England's best-known bowler, his wine's from Languedoc in France, or famous NFL quarterback, Drew Bledsoe from Washington State. They've all got a passion for wine, and I think that's the start point. They've all got their own narrative as to why they got into wine. Some of it, they've gone back to actually just fulfill a passion they've always had, or they've come into it slightly late on and fulfilled that. But they all take it seriously. So, we've kind of sifted around the world. People have said to us before Lionel Messi came on the scene, why haven't you got any Malbec? And there's nothing in football. And I said, well, you can't make it up. You know, if they haven't got the sporting connection. I know that Argentina and Mendoza is a huge place, but if I can't find anybody who's got a sporting connection that makes Malbec, there's nothing I can stock. And suddenly Lionel Messi turned up with his foundation that make two Malbec and a Toronto. So we nailed football and Argentina and Malbec in one fell swoop, which was wonderful. But, you know, we are self-limited by our story. Happily, most countries in the world have got a sports person somewhere who have achieved great things or been very, very connected to sport, that have now moved into wine. And, the great thing about them is that they all believe in what they're doing. They all want a relationship. It's not just a transaction. So anyone who gets involved with sporting wine feels that relationship. Sports people are just ordinary human beings, of course, and they love the connection and the relationships as much as anybody else.
Absolutely, and I'm intrigued to find out if you've got any more secret gems in the cupboard that you're looking to release in the near future.
Well, that would be telling. We're always in discussion. As I say, we can't create it. You know, we know there's a few out there that are interesting. And the other thing is that we've got a sort of a small but growing spirits corner. You know, we haven't renamed ourselves Sporting Wine and Spirits, but there's a few well-known. Michael Vaughan, the ex-England cricket captain, now sells his Declaration gin through us. Obviously, Doddie Weir, who's fighting amazing fight against MND, has had gin. The Doddie gin. So, there's a few things coming down the line on spirits, which we will embrace if it's right. But there's a couple of new situations in wine in the mix, should we just say. But I'll keep you all posted on that.
Sounds fantastic. And I think virtual wine tasting sessions is a brilliant idea, just for the record. You wear another hat, though, obviously having played rugby for England yourself, and you're very involved in sort of European club rugby. I know we're all watching with hesitation as sports lovers to sort of see how this is all going to unfold. Do you have any insight on that, and what are your feelings about the future?
It's really difficult. I think the rugby world, as in every sport, you've got the short, the medium and the long term. And I think the short term of how on earth we get back to playing the sport, and rugby is very close contact, obviously, so deemed to be high risk and hasn't restarted yet, or that has in New Zealand. And because they've got no COVID at all, they've been playing in packed stadiums. So, we're looking enviously from this side of the world. Our European tournaments stopped back in March, so we've missed our quarterfinals, semi-finals and finals, which were going to be in Marseille, the finals. We have dates for those games to be played. We don't know the status. There is talk of limited crowds, but it's down to biosecure stadia and the risks, but all the players gone back to training. They've all been tested for COVID. 99.9% of them are free of the virus, so that's very important. That they can get back training, and then we'll just have to wait to see. There are government announcements we have to pay attention to. Infection rates, we're across border tournaments, play across Europe. And then, of course, the longer term is what we do as a global sport. The pandemic has caused hundreds of millions of pounds of financial damage to us. Many sporting, rugby unions around the world are in serious financial difficulty now. If you think about a full stadium, it's a £10 million day. For a club, it's a £1.5 million day. And if you haven't played for months, and then of course all the broadcasters and the sponsors don't see the rugby that they've paid to contract with you for. So it's highly complicated. We're trying to look at a global season that harmonizes as well. So as if we haven't got enough to deal with in the very short term, we're trying to construct a calendar that works for the North and the Southern Hemisphere. There are intentions for New Zealand to come here later in the year, Japan possibly, South Africa, etc., and for other teams to go the other way. But who can tell? If you've got to quarantine, then it makes it unrealistic, and so it's very difficult. And the Zoom conference calls are proliferating because it's the only way we can communicate with each other. But it's existential for sure, and we're not the only industry. I mean, we've talked about the hospitality industry is in serious difficulty for the reasons we all know. Rugby is in the same place. It's in a critical place, and we're going to need a lot of help, perhaps from governments, perhaps from bailouts, but from investors to replace or at least get some stability back in before we can plan ahead to a time when there will be people able to come into the ground safely and enjoy the sport, because that's what it's all about.
Absolutely, and like I say, sport is such an integral part of so many of our lives, and it brings so many people together. So to get it back and us all enjoying it from a hospitality perspective as well is going to be very well received when it does happen. That is for sure. It's been quite interesting to see some sports being played in empty stadia. And I suppose from a sportsman perspective, I wonder how on earth are players motivated? It must be quite difficult when you're relying on the atmosphere and your supporters, how to keep the game going and the teams motivated.
Well, because football's been showing the way on that. And, I'm looking at it from a rugby standpoint, because clearly I'm sure the first games we play could be in front of very, very small crowds, if any. And sort of at what point you turn up the dial for the volume of noise when there's something exciting about to happen. So you can imagine someone actually operating a sort of a dialing up, dialing down system. But, players thrive on passion. I suspect when you look back in the football matches, there are probably many less fouls than there have been in the real time, because, you're urged on by the crowd to try harder, to make that tackle. And I suspect if you're in an empty stadium, you subconsciously perhaps don't have that intensity that you would have if your home crowd is urging you on. So, I mean, sport, as you said, is the fabric of who we are as individuals. I've often said rugby made me as a person, for good and for bad. You learn a lot about yourself in sport, both at the top end and at the bottom end, when things go well or badly for you. So it's a lesson in life, sport. And we've all been sitting here having to look at videos and dream of the fact when anybody can just get back out onto a pitch. It doesn't matter who you are, just to feel the wind in your hair, kick a ball, strike a ball. Social distancing in golf is easy. The way I play, you spend most of your time on the wrong side anyway. So these things, it's what we're about as human beings. So really important to get that back as soon as we can.
Absolutely. I know the Springboks are quite comfortable for the next 3 years, but I totally understand that it's a need to get back. Again, we mentioned you had a wonderful arrival of Joey 2 days ago, and you've got a beautiful young family. How is lockdown down for you, other than catching up on a bit of sleep?
Yeah, I'm sure everyone's got their stories of their experiences in lockdown with each other as families and whoever people. I think people made choices, didn't they, to go and stay with people, or I'm going to be here for 2 months. Who can I bear to be with, or do we go and stay with whoever? So everyone's got those stories. I've got to know my family incredibly well. Been running breakfast time just about every day, and trying to find a little area I can do a few calls and do some work during the day. But I find myself more productive. I found myself not rushing around so much, obviously, but how many of my trips have been needless or because that was just a routine. So I think we've all asked ourselves, can we do things better? And I think being more socially connected in a world where people have played around in social media and if in a way distance themselves from real world sometimes, just without being in lockdown, now you find the real value of staying in contact with your family, even from a distance, and making social media work properly for you as human beings, rather than a way of just disconnecting and sending remote messages because you're too busy. So I think actually it's social media at work in a positive way. Zoom is now takes on a completely new meaning as a word, doesn't it? I've been zooming around for a while, but now I'm just in Zoom the whole time because it's conference calls. So I do think on a net basis, very positive. I think everyone has agreed nothing's going to be the same again. We will be a bit more selective and choose a bit more what we do. But there's no escaping. There's going to be a lot of pain in the short term for the damage this has done to everybody, whether it be job-wise or mental health-wise. It's not easy to be stuck at home when you're a naturally outgoing person or anybody. So I think we're going to have to work really hard together as a community to help ourselves through the next phase of helping people who aren't in a great place, or helping them get back on a ladder somewhere. Be mindful of everyone's different circumstances, which, there's no doubting this is going to be a tough period as we all come out of lockdown, because you're not coming back to the same world.
No, absolutely. And you're right. You mentioned earlier, it is about, supporting each other, and we're in this together. Sharing knowledge and investing in those relationships will ease the pain. And lockdown, I think, has also brought, like you say, a lot of clarity to many from a personal and a business perspective, or changed the way they've thought about their businesses or what they're doing moving forward. Has that impacted on you, and what are your hopes for the future?
Yeah, when you do a few things, I always have a portfolio of interests rather than just a single job. And, many people have gone down that road in the number of years. There was a period in banking, investment banking, where, I knew I had to be in work at 7:15 and I'd leave at whatever time, normally sort of rather too late for my liking. But and you knew that's what you did for your day job. Now that if you've got a number of different things, you don't know how they're all going to look. When everyone has come away from the forced lockdown, or the appetite for people to continue in that business is. So I feel a bit uncertain, obviously, like everybody else will. I think I've had time to think about what I really want to stay with, and perhaps some things I was doing which were not very productive. So it might make us all focus a lot more. And so I guess it's going to be challenging. But we've all had time to think. So I guess it's choice time now as to what you think you want to do, and then just go through and really work on it, as opposed to perhaps we all slightly were stretched in different directions and allowed it to happen, because that's the busy life we all lead. And perhaps we're not going to do that anymore. But I'm as certain as anybody, and no one can be. So, but I'm optimistic, and I think, I'm a great believer in the great spirit that exists in this country and beyond. As humans, we all want the best. So, we'll come back from worse than this.
Absolutely. And you're a youngish business. There are a lot of businesses out there in hospitality and beyond that, like you say, are really suffering and just trying to work out what is the way forward. Do you have any advice for them as they struggle on? Well,
we are a small business, a young business, but I think we've got some differentiation, which I think matters. And in some conversations I've had with some of our end markets, as it were, they've been locked down and we've not been able to supply, I've been extremely nervous. They might just say, look, you're small, we don't need you. We're going to have to be much more selective, so you're off the list or whatever. And what I've found is that a bit more positive than that people actually, because they recognize that we have a type of brand and that we are slightly out of the ordinary, that when they come back into business, they want to be associated with people like that. I'm sure that's not going to be our experience all the way, but some of the conversations I've had. So I think now's the time in this industry that think what your unique selling points are. Think what it is that differentiates you from other people, and make a real play on that, because when your end market makes the decision on how they're going to operate, I think that will make a meaningful difference to them, because they've still got to attract customers in. They've still got to show who they are, that they're thinking about the customer. And whilst everyone's in financial constraints and customer spending might be a little bit variable, or very variable, I'm sure, they're still going to want to make decisions based on quality, value, and good differentiation. So I think look at your own business, see the bits that you think really work, perhaps get rid of the bits that were there but you weren't quite sure why, and concentrate on your core. And I think that will be what's attractive to their market. But who knows? I mean, we're all going to find our way forward on this, but I found in my early conversations that that's made a difference.
Absolutely. And you said before, you know, it is about relationships and about supporting each other through this. So hopefully we all stay positive and we will come out in the end. I
do think we will, but, you know, we can't do it on our own. We've all got to be in it together. So, you know, and thank you for all your sometimes entertaining, other times very insightful words and emails through the crisis. It's kept us all, you know, on the ball, as it were. So keep doing what you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's kept us entertained and constantly educated. Like you said, we're all just figuring it out one step at a time. Thank you so much for joining me, Simon. I'm so grateful. It's so lovely to see you again. It feels like it's been way too long. And look forward to a large glass of wine with you, Sporting Wine Club wine, in the very near future.
Well, I think so. This weekend is the start, isn't it? And after that, it's the only way is up. So let's keep going.
Absolutely. Wishing you all the best for the future, and lots of love to the family. See you soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.